we have a few guests with us, so I'll explain a little bit. The students have moved into second chamber now, last week. So today is essentially a summary of all the most important aspects, the fundamentals of Gnostic education and practical wisdom. So there is a lot of topics in Gnosis, a lot of interesting topics like the history of humanity, lots of other things, but at the end of the day, no matter what we study, the most important things are these things that I'm going to talk about now. No matter how advanced or intellectual we become in complex concepts and everything, the practical awakening of consciousness is always the most important thing. If we forget that, then we can't really call ourselves Gnostics, right? Gnostics meaning people of spiritual experience, direct experience. Otherwise, we just become just like university professors, people who study with the mind, intellect, don't really actually directly understand things. They're just working from memory. So, we have a lot of words here. Don't skip ahead. Just listen, and I'm going to point to everything. Can you see? I'll put it a bit closer. You can see? Maybe easier, far away? You can see? Okay. So, in the middle here, I've put the diagram of Kabbalah, right? And we talked about the pillar of Jachin, Boaz, and we want the middle way. Now, I've made this more simple to understand because the foundation or the basis of Kabbalah at the bottom is this physical world and our physical body. And these, I'm going to talk about them in a second. Above here, above our will, when you say, oh, I will do this, I will do that, what is the will of people? Some people have a will of good and they want to help others. Some people have a will of destruction and hurting others, right? Now, above that human aspect, however, this can also be divine. It can be human and divine, the causal part. This is all human. Human. This is, let's put it like this, a H with a line. It can be human or divine. Our ego will, the will of our ego, our unconscious desires, or the will of our being. So usually above this in Kabbalah, we see a lot of, it can be quite complex, right? But for practicality, practical understanding, simple understanding, it's just the being. The divinity is above this human aspect. And that's what we want to connect to, our being. And sometimes we call this God, divinity, different words. But here we're calling it our being. Being is a nice word, especially in relation to what you just said about you want to clear the mind, because everything we do in life is doing, right? What is the opposite of doing? It's being. It's not doing anything, not thinking, not feeling. It's this middle path. Nothingness, emptiness. So, as you may recall in previous lectures, a kind of mantra or affirmation to remind ourselves, especially when we're struggling or whenever we want to say it, I am not the body. I'm not the body. I'm not the emotions, the astral body. I'm not these emotions. I am not these emotions, right? I am not my thoughts. I am not my thoughts, right? And I am not my will, right? So I'm not my body, I'm not my emotions, I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my will. Or at least I'm not my evil will, the part of me that just wants to be unconscious, doing everything in life, just, ill will, you could say. What thing that we can identify with is our being. That's very difficult to understand if we haven't practiced this yet. It takes many years to really understand what it means to feel a sense of yoga, right? Yoga meaning union, or religion meaning to bind oneself with God. Getting this sense of being inside us. I identify with my being. I don't identify with anything in life. Now, you'll see here, our will is connected to our thoughts. So will is superior to our thoughts, our will. If you get up one morning and say, I will have no thoughts today, I will be in perfect being with myself, you're working at a causal level, superior level, superior to the thoughts. Thoughts can't control thoughts in themselves. One needs will. You can't say, oh, I will control my thoughts today. No, you need will. Will doesn't think. Will. Then, thoughts are then trickled down into the internal dimensions, into the emotions. Thoughts are superior to emotions. When you are drowning in negative emotions, it's thoughts that can help you. When you're so drunk with negative emotions, when you just balance yourself and start to think, reason, actually this thought isn't rational. I don't need to think like that, right? Emotions. And then emotions are then connected to this. This is the vital body and the physical body. They're connected. They're kind of a two-in-one. This is the vital body. Vitality, or also known as the etheric body. In other Eastern teachings, you may also call this chi, life force, pure life force, right? Also called relates to our sexual energy. It's the energy that animates our body, okay, and gives us life. Without it, we would die. When the physical body dies, this dies. And you go into the astral if you die. Into the astral plane, okay, the astral body. But these two these dissolve, okay. Now, what's important to understand here is relating it to the Christian esoteric teachings. Caiaphas, Pilate, and Judas. These are the three traitors. The three traitors of us. In other words, those are our egos. That's what we're here in this life to observe, to comprehend, eliminate, dissolve, kill, however you want to call it. Judas is related to the demon of desire. It relates to our physical body, vital body, our sensuality, and it's also related to our emotions. Pilate is related to the mind, and the causal is related to, or Caiaphas is related to evil will. So you'll see here, Caiaphas. Caiaphas relates to misuse of authority, right? It's working at the causal level. So this is something, it's already difficult for us to understand what it means to follow the being. That when God tells you to do something, or you get an impulse from your consciousness, your conscience, to do something in that moment, we find it very difficult to even recognize that. So the demon working at that level is very difficult to comprehend. So misuse of authority or false spirituality, it may manipulate us into thinking that we're following the right path by doing something wrong. It can relate to desire for fame, desire for power. It secretly plots to kill the Christ, meaning it secretly plots to kill our inner Christ, our essence, our real being. It secretly, there's a part of us that doesn't want to follow these teachings, doesn't want to do practices. It wants to just go party, eat food, be with friends, and just watch Netflix. Whatever things are part of our own life that keep us asleep, right? Also relates to hypocrisy. that, we tell others, oh, be like this, be like that, when really you look inside that person, they're not doing that thing. Even like we just said before, even if they're doing things externally, maybe we don't know what they're like internally. Remember, we cannot judge anyone. You can only see the true reality of someone internally. If you've awakened internally, you might be able to perceive the true colors of someone. That's why it is, we say that it's absurd to judge someone. Okay? So Pilate, the thoughts, a demon of the mind. Again, Pilate justifies wrong actions, symbolized by washing his hands. Deceptive rationalizations. Someone tells you one thing, you always oppose. You always think you're the right one who's thinking the right thing. Intellectual pride or skepticism defends the ego and teaches us to doubt our Christ, doubt the Christic principle or the Christic impulse in us to love others, to sacrifice others. And then we have Judas. Uncontrolled passions, lust, desires, sensual, right? This is symbolized by him kissing the Christ, right? Physical pleasure to drain the sexual energy, right? The sexual energy relating to the Holy Spirit. Judas betrays the Christ for wealth, materialism, sensuality, or sensual indulgence, animal consciousness, and just being more animalistic, because it's at the lower level here. Okay. So when we say, I don't identify with my body, I don't identify with my emotions, I don't identify with my thoughts, don't identify with my will, are we really doing that? Because it's very difficult. If we've only just begun these studies and we say, yes, I cannot identify with my emotions and thoughts. If we say yes, we should be careful, right? Because at first we should know that we can't, or we find it very difficult to not identify. Because only when you can admit, I can't identify, that's when you can really begin to stop identifying. Otherwise, if you believe that you're not identifying, well, then you might just be being betrayed by the mental plane, right? The mental body. Pilate is just fooling you, saying, "Oh yeah, you're okay. You're not identified with your thoughts and emotions. You're okay, right?" It's justifying your mind. So, are you really not identifying as a concept, or are you really doing it in experientially, in the moment? So is it a betrayal of yourself? Are you lying to yourself? Or are you really truly experiencing this identification, this freedom? If you are, you can start to sense it a bit, because you start to see the light. You free from here and you go up a level of being. You start to feel happy. Start to feel at peace. I'm really free from this thought, this emotion. I understand the problems in my life, the conflicts with others, and I understand my own problems. I see it from a higher perspective. If we're not experiencing that, probably we have pride. We have, usually a lot of pride. Yeah. So, in order to really do this, get into this middle way, we have to practice from moment to moment. Not in the future, not in the past. We have to practice now, here and now. That's the only time that a person can begin to walk the path. You can't practice it in the future. It has to be now, always paying attention now. And it's about, we have a gift in this life with this human machine, this physical body, to observe it. But right now, it's like our human body is like a computer, a broken computer, and the wires are here and there and everywhere, and it's all messed up. We have to gain control of our human machine. And so part of doing that, we can understand, looking here, that if you remember in a previous, or one of the first classes, we talked about the center of our consciousness, or the center of our gravity. We need to be here. This is like a storm. thoughts, emotions, demons, egos, whatever you want to call it, unconsciousness, is all here. Usually, people are just like leaves in the wind. They're not conscious of themselves. They're not real human beings, because they're just byproducts of external reality, of society, of conditioning, unconsciously listening to parents, to friends, to TV. And they just live here, flying around, going from one extreme to the other. Problems, dramas. Just like this, lost. Everyone's lost. Humanity is lost. Rare is it that a person struggles and rebels and goes against the world and cultivates their center here, strong, at peace, like a rock, like a big boulder that doesn't move, a statue. And they are really true to themselves. They don't just follow the external world, but they follow who they truly are, right? Being, in the center of the being. Themself, their true self. That's why we say one of the goals of Gnosis is to become a true individual. You don't come to these classes to blindly follow teachings. Nobody should go to religions listening to the priest or lecturer or something and say, you should be like this, you should be like that. Follow these teachings or you'll go to hell. No. Each one of us has to follow our being. Of course, we can be manipulated, again, by Pilate, by saying, okay, I'll just be myself. And myself likes to gossip and do bad things and kill people or whatever, right? We have to be very careful. We need to know how to meditate. And so, as some pointers for that, if we look at this, we have to gain control. We have to be in the middle, have to be in our center. Our center, of course, is related to our heart, right? Related to Leo. Leo relates to the sun. That's the center of our solar system. The Christ is always depicted with a heart, right? A sacrificial heart too, a heart that loves and sacrifices for others, meaning that it's not a selfish heart. It really thinks of others. Try to insult the Christ, that part of us would never feel offended. It would really consider the other person and love the other person because it understands. Okay, middle, center, balance. You feel at peace and happy, not superficial happiness, right? True happiness. Now, throughout our day, from moment to moment, this is very important. And it relates to our fundamental practice of self-observation. We have to notice, is our mood going down into negativity? Feeling bad moods, negativity. What degree would you say? All of you we're talking about all this. You might feel a bit inspired now, so it's a little bit easier to feel balanced and at peace. But later on, at some point, or maybe you can reflect maybe yesterday or whatever, what degree of negativity do you think you were feeling? I could say, I think a few days ago, I went down to maybe 2 or 3. Some people go down to 50, 100. What were the consequences of that when you're feeling very negative? Because when you start to move outside of the circle, outside of your center, you start to get lost here, outside of the center. You're not even in reality. You're just even outside the storm within a dream. And when you're in so much negativity, what are the consequences? You easily fall into anger, easily fall into irritability, easily fall into lust. You lose your sexual energy somehow. You start thinking bad thoughts about other people, jealousy. There's so many things, right? When we observe our mood becoming negative, we have to not identify. Stop identifying whatever emotions you're having. It's not about forcefully being violent. No, I'm not going to feel that. No, you accept it. It's like when you have a child. If you're a good parent, you let the child express itself, but you don't identify, and you then be patient, because as soon as you're identified, all things start to happen and it gets worse, right? You have to build a space inside yourself. So once you're going down, you have to fight to come back. You have to use your will to go more into the middle, into the center, balance, peace, however way that you can do that. Praying to the Divine Mother, meditation, self-observation, even just, taking a few breaths, doing some mantras that we've learned, anything to get back to this center. Right. As you can see here, some examples. I'm a victim of this. When I'm very busy and I have a lot of work to do, sometimes I don't notice, my mood is going a bit more negative, right? So I observe, right? If I don't observe, maybe we start going into complaining. I have so much work to do. I've got to do this, got to do that, right? Maybe we start to get sad, angry. Maybe then we start to get into confusion. We have to remember ourselves. Remember your being. Go back. Balance, right? Remember that this is a path of balance. And to get back here, all the tests in life that we have will always be like this. Whatever test we're going through, just like you said with the dream, I woke up from a dream and I almost identified with it. No, just go back to the center. Have patience, right? Like the Christ said, with patience ye will possess your souls. And Master Samael, as he says, as soon as the initiate starts to have just a little bit of impatience, he fails. And he says that patience has to be multiplied to infinite degrees. Just our concept of that has to be infinite. Don't say, tomorrow I've done this much meditation and work, but why aren't I feeling this? Why aren't I having astral projections or all of this? No, infinite degrees, right? It's like when you have a child and it keeps begging the mother and father, please, can I have this toy? Please, can I have this toy? Why won't you give it me? And maybe starts punching the parent. And of course, the parent isn't going to give the toy, right? Bad child, no. But as soon as the child is good and patient, you want to reward it, right? Because you see it's not in ego. It deserves it. It deserves something, right? Similarly, as we go down into negativity, we also have to observe going into positivity too. This isn't about good or bad, positive, negative. It's not about white and black. Religions today, I'm not speaking against religions because Gnosis is not against any religion, but unconsciously it's like sometimes, not all of them, but they try to just go into the positive aspect. Like we just be positive. But it's not also about that too. Of course, because some people fall into religious fanaticism, right? So now Gnosis is a little bit like, we want to be in the center, but we can be a little bit to the right. Because positive energy is good, right? Healthy. The thing is, if we fall into too much of it, we're just so gullible, naive. We start daydreaming, right? We're so, I'm so happy. Rainbows and hugs and kisses, right? What kind of person is this? And are they going to fall into error? Usually, right? We have to be intelligent. We have to be educated. We have to be precise and have willpower and know ourselves and not fool ourselves and lie to ourselves that we're full of ego. We have so much of it, even if they're good egos. I'm a very good Gnostic. I'm doing the path very well. I'm going to be sent to heaven, and right? They're ignoring so much. We have thousands of past lives that we don't know and things that we are inside us that we don't see. That's why we say, in order to ascend, you have to descend first. You have to look into the unconsciousness, into the darkness, right? As Joseph Campbell said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek, right? So again, we're not condemning positivity, but in those moments when when we start walking the path, we start to feel a certain happiness. We start to feel a certain light, especially if you're in alchemy or you have transmutation and you're feeling the purity inside you. Like you used to be lustful, but now you're not, and you have so much energy. Wow, I feel really happy. I feel great. The teachings are working. And you feel so happy. But then, I don't know, maybe we start to watch TV. We become so fascinated And we, wow, this is so funny, you know. We're going into attachment, right? Oh, I love my family and so much, and right, going into fantasies, daydreaming, and we're going to hysteria, like hysterical happiness, and we have to be balanced. We start to going onto that side, dreaming into the good, or dreaming into the bad. So always, from moment to moment, we have to learn this observation of being in the middle, being in balance, being in peace. If we're not, we have to comprehend why. Why are we not in peace? Okay, I think that's that done? Yeah. So, here's some questions to reflect on relating to all of that. When you are going to do something, so the physical body, right? But this also relates to the will, the causal body, the will inside us. When you are going to do something, are you conscious of it, and why? This is very deep to reflect on. Why am I doing it, right? A husband might go to the supermarket and he tells his wife, oh, it's just to buy groceries. But inside him, he likes to look at all the beautiful women there and maybe flirt with some of them, right? And maybe he's not even conscious of that, right? That's an extreme example. But that's what it means to work at this causal level. The husband realizes, I see you and I work against you. I deny myself. I deny that part of myself. I'm going to be true to myself. When we start to, maybe where a woman is talking to a friend and we'll say, hey, look at this girl on Facebook. No, she's doing this and that. Really inside the woman, there's something that wants to gossip about the person and say evil words. We don't know. That's how the causal body and the egos inside it work. That it makes us do something, but secretly it's something that is against our being, against our true virtues, our principles, our values. So anytime we're doing something in life, why am I doing it? Why? As soon as my hand moves and does something, why is it doing it, right? Why am I taking this course? Why am I going to see this friend? We should know why. And everything that we do in our life, we should know why, okay? It's not always bad, of course. You can do it if it's part of you, right? Oh, it's because I love this person, because there's meaning with this person, because I truly want to seek the truth of doing this thing. We always have to know, is it the being or is it the ego? Right. So that's at the causal level. Similarly, we're now going to the mental level. When you are filled with thoughts, are you conscious of them or just totally hypnotized? I have so much thinking and all these thoughts about something or someone or whatever. Are you really conscious of those thoughts that are playing around in your space? Or are you just totally hypnotized by them? Emotions. When you are full of emotions, are you consciously observing or are you just drowning and indulging in self-pity? This is why emotions relate to the vital body quite a bit. Because when we start indulging in self-pity and these very negative emotions, it's kind of like a self-fornication, you know? You're just like, oh, I feel this and I want to feel it more. Everyone's telling you not to, but you want to. You know, you can't even get out of it. And then with the physical body, because the physical body has its own brain, it moves by itself. Is your body moving unconsciously, just doing whatever it wants to do? Or are you aware? Sometimes if the body could speak, the body brain, it could be like, I'm feeling so lazy right now, right? Or look at that man or woman, right? Or maybe you're walking down the street and you keep looking at a girl, a very beautiful girl or a handsome man, and you can't stop looking. Like the body just has its own brain, right? I can't stop fidgeting, right? Why am I fidgeting, moving? So nervous or anxiety. I'll eat more, right? Just unconsciously. Take things selfishly, like, maybe we just, people just give us things and we just take without thinking, without gratitude. Okay? So the point here, control your human machine. Take dominion over your life, over your body. Right? Don't be a leaf in the wind. Don't be unconscious. And that, of course, that begins here and now, practicing being in the present moment. And of course, also relating to the three factors. You remember what they are, right? If I, right? Death. Remember? Yeah. Death. Yeah. What's the second one? Rebirth. Birth. Rebirth or birth. And then? Sacrifice. Yes, right. Number one. I've changed it a bit here, but it's death, birth, and sacrifice. But death, or psychological death, the death of the ego, or the psychological rebirth, it involves self-observation. We must have a part of our awareness that's always observing, even in this moment, no matter what thoughts. Whether they're good or bad, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have good or bad thoughts, they're just thoughts. Self-observe and self-remember. Remember your true self. If you don't remember yourself, you'll be identified with thoughts as a false sense of identity. I have these thoughts, so they are me, and that's my sense of self. It's not you. It's not you. You have to, if you want profound and deep meditation, you have to understand that. So self-observation, self-remembrance, and also self-comprehension. You can't dissolve the ego without comprehending it first, profoundly. If you don't understand it, you can't. It's like know your enemy, right? You have to know your enemy. That's the art of war, right? Or the holy jihad in Islam. Or in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna sends Arjuna to war, holy war. There's a part of the path that is about fighting, about self-denial, about going against oneself. So we have to have the self-observation, self-remembrance, self-comprehension in order for the death to happen. But not just that, it needs number 2, which is birth, transmutation, alchemy. Because it's just so important. We need this chastity. If we're doing everything right, but we're still having so much lust, it's very difficult. Not just because of the impurity of the will and the lust itself, but we just don't have the energy to perceive. Some people think that in Gnosis, if you want to awaken and understand these mysteries and become an advanced initiate or something, you should be very, very well studied. No, you can study these teachings for, I know people much better than me. Their knowledge is so, they're like an encyclopedia of Gnosis. They've been studying for 10 or 20 years, but their consciousness isn't awakened. If you want to really directly perceive these energies and realities, energy. We need to raise our level of being. We need energy. If the vital body is being drained, right, through the orgasm, as you know, we just lose energy. So, the interesting part here, this is the vital body. The interesting part here we need to understand. The vital body accumulates tremendous energy every day. So much energy. Through breathing, through the things that we do, through the things that we eat, it all goes into our blood, and the last alchemical process that's extracted semen for both men and women. Women have semen, not sperm, but semen. Right? Sexual energy. It keeps us going. It's our vitality. However, so a light begins to accumulate here. A light. This relates to the light of the Christ, but it also relates to the light of Lucifer. Now, Lucifer is not a demon or Satan or something. Remember that Lucifer is the light bringer. He fell, or he sacrificed for humanity to have light. It's the sexual fire. That's why everyone in the world today has so much sexual fire, but look what we've done with it. We've made a world of hell, right? So alchemy is also known as stealing fire from hell. Because we gather the fire, we gather the sexual energy, always avoiding the orgasm, also avoiding the... Of course, if we're in a single, we don't do masturbation, anything like that. We wait for our wife to come, and we practice alchemy together. Now, when that fire is being gathered, it can then be raised, the torch can be raised to illuminate the astral body, the emotions, the darkness of our emotions. It can be raised to illuminate the thoughts. It can be raised to illuminate the will. And eventually it all goes here to the being. And you start to make that connection with divinity directly, not conceptually, directly in direct experience. But it cannot raise the light if the other bodies are just black, right? It will explode, meaning, or you can relate this to the chakras, right? Because the vital body is down here, we could say, right? It needs to be raised. However, if the chakras are blocked, are black, or in other words, we're full of negative emotions that we identify with, we're full of fascinations and mental thoughts and an evil will, well, then it can't go anywhere. But energy is being accumulated, but the channels are blocked. What happens if you have a dam or you have nuclear energy, but it doesn't have an output? It doesn't have an output. It can't integrate with your higher self, your emotions, your thoughts. Of course, it's gonna explode. That's what we call the orgasm. Okay? So, death of ego, transmutation of sexual energy. It's important not to get discouraged with this. It can take a while, especially if you don't have a partner yet, to understand. And even when you're in a partner, you need a lot of love to understand it. If you don't love your partner, it's difficult, right? You're just, why are you having sex then? Just for lust? It's okay if there's a bit of lust. Again, we're stealing fire from hell. Just don't identify with the lust, but don't go to the orgasm, right? But really, if you're practicing white tantra and you don't love your partner, eventually, if you don't find that love at some point with them, if you don't build the love, right, make love, it's generated, right? Nobody is really meets someone and they're just in love immediately, right? You work on it, right? But if there's not love, it's very hard to transmute the energy. Master Samael said himself that he struggled for years with his lust. He perfected himself physically. He would never look at a woman lustfully. He wouldn't look at pornographic magazines, as he said, or anything like that. But in the astral, it just took, like, he said something funny like a broomstick with a skirt, and he would just go to it immediately in his subconsciousness, right? And he said, he summarized that, or his learning, in the end, he was taught in the astral that he forgot about his divine mother. He forgot about love. And it's love that can raise the energy, raises the transmutation. Of course, that relates to number 3, sacrifice. Death, birth, sacrifice. That's why these 3 are the awakening of consciousness. They're needed, all of them. Sacrifice. Of course, if just to indulge in the gratification of physical pleasure, example like the orgasm, it's a selfish gratification, right? It takes a great amount of love and sacrifice to sacrifice that. I can't remember where in the teachings it says, but it's the greatest sacrifice a person can do because it's the strongest animal impulse in us. And it kind of takes a God will, a will of God to really say, I don't want that anymore, you know? So we need to learn love, which is also translated to non-selfishness. In Buddhism, it's bodhicitta. In Christianity, it's Christ. It's the Christ principle, the teachings of Christ. Non-selfishness. Why am I doing this whole path? Is it just for myself? Or is it to help others eventually? Of course, it's quite difficult to understand. If some people have children, it can be a little bit easier, because having children, or at least if you really try to be a good parent, you really learn. It's like you're being forced to practice sacrifice. You don't have a choice. You need to love that child, right? No matter how much ego you have, right? All the parents are really, nodding their heads and smiling. It's true. Doesn't matter how, you're going to see all your demons and you're going to be tested to the edge, but you're still going to have to love that child, right? So that can also be applied to all of the teachings too, and why we want to dissolve the ego and everything like that. Yes. Okay. That's it. So, any questions about anything?
Why does someone need to be conscious about if they're going to do something?
Why does a person need to be conscious if they're going to do something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why is it important?
Do you have a
to do less wrong, or maybe it's something more?
Maybe sometimes when we do something, it's okay. We're not doing anything wrong. However, if we continue living in a way that we don't know what we're doing, at some point we're going to do something that's wrong, because we've become habituated. We've become in the permanent habit of living unconsciously, and we don't know that we're doing it wrong, right? Yeah. Sometimes you can see it. We'd be so busy in the day. We're doing so many things that we don't really know what we're doing or taking any space. And then eventually it just ends up in an argument or a conflict. And you might think you're in a good space and you're happy, but what about this aspect of selflessness and considering others? You might be so happy, but then you just say something out of the blue to someone else. You don't know they're in a bad mood, and you trigger them, and negativity just enters your home, right? You have to know why you're doing something. Actually, the mystical aspect is, if you're really conscious of what you're doing, all your actions in life will be guided mystically by your being. And that it's like, because you might think, oh, but how could I know if someone's in a bad mood? Well, there's a certain divine guidance within us that wouldn't do something out of line of our reality here. Yeah. But again, it's very difficult to understand why we're doing something, because already not even the thoughts, but even just the emotions, it's very difficult to understand our emotions, our conditioning, our trauma. And so we have to bring conscious thought, and reflect on our emotions. But then even when we have thoughts, we don't know that it's actually, there is a will, a causal level behind our thoughts too. So it's very profound too. This is called, in Gnosis, we say this is the minimum level that we should reach, the causal level. It's also known as the kingdom, or the balanced man, to become a balanced man. Remember that in one of our lectures, there are, let's say, 3 types of men. The first type of person only follows physical things, only follows maybe like a sports person or an Olympian. They feel that the way to happiness is to be so healthy and eat so good and go to the gym, I'm strong, and that's it. And they think with their body. They're not so integrated with emotions and thoughts. The second type of person is very emotional. So in religion, this is fakir, right? The people who in yoga or in India, they can put their hand up. I think there's one guy that has his hand up for so many years, and now it's stayed like that and he can't put it down. Or they stay in a cave and they just don't move for months. They don't eat. It's just working with physical body. They think if they just have complete control of physical body, that's it. They reach enlightenment. Of course, it's wrong. Not wrong, because we need all 3. But just to follow that is not the full way. Then we have emotional. In the Philippines, this is mostly what, from my observation, here, monks and religious people. We need this, right? But if we're only this, we're not integrated. So it's following emotions. When I go to church, can I feel the beauty and the serenity and the love of God, and I feel so with Mother Mary and everything. Those are good things. We need that. Superior emotions, they're very important. I think generally Filipinos kind of mastered this. In the West, where I'm from, people struggle with this. But they're very good with their thoughts, very intellectual. And a person like this kind of more relates to yoga, that they're very mental. Mind, very always in the center. But that's it. They haven't integrated their superior emotions. Maybe they don't focus so much on the physical body. We need all of this in order to reach this. So remember, this relates to the three brains too. It needs to be whenever we check in on ourselves, whenever you decide, amidst your day, I'm gonna remember myself and self-observe. Okay, what could you do? You could ask yourself, what am I thinking? What are my thoughts? And what is the feeling of my body? And that's a good practice to do, like just a few times a day, or from moment to moment, ideally. And if you do that, if you can keep your three brains, the brain of your physical body, the brain of your emotions, and the brain of your thoughts, if you can keep them in balance, you become a balanced man. You become a causal man, a person of conscious willpower. Because when you are really in line, when you are really integrated with your body, emotions, thoughts, and you're really following your conscious will, then you know the being. You start to sense the being. You start to feel happy, secure, peace, balanced, love. And then the important part is, because you're not perfect, the ego will come in. But at that point, when the ego comes in, you know what the ego is then, because you know the being more. He's like, I'm so happy. Then you start to do something destructive that doesn't make you happy. That's the ego. Then you can start to self-observe and reflect. Why do I have this attachment that I can't control? I need to look back. I need to reflect. I need to observe, get in touch more. Maybe pray to, we're desperate to, this is what we're desperate to know, right? Reflect. If you have a certain addiction, where did it begin? You can see where it was born, right? So it relates to our retrospective meditation. During that meditation, maybe sometimes flashbacks of things in childhood that happened, certain traumas, or someone taught us something, right? So the more that you are more in with your being, the more that you can also understand the ego. Right now, we're so covered in the ego that we don't even know what it is, because we've been living in it for so long. 97% of our consciousness. That's why it's also important to practice meditation, know what it means to be with our being. And the more you're with your being, well, the better then, because you start to understand what the light is, and it's easier to go against the ego. But if you're only living in ego and you don't know what the being is, it's very painful to just dissolve the ego, because you feel like you're killing yourself. Well, you're not killing yourself, you're just killing an illusory part. If you have this, you're centered, you're relaxed, you have the light, you have love, it's much easier to change.